welcome to Detroit Comics Party, episode 50.
Wow.
It's a milestone.
We're morning DJs now.
It's Drive Time Radio, right?
Drive Time Radio. Yeah. Here.
Hello.
And today with us in the studio, your graphic is gonna say social media as your social media.
It's true.
I hope that's okay.
I am definitely
But
on social media.
we got your name. Your name is right?
Yeah, no, that looked good.
Oh.
I can check the spelling if you want to show it again. But
Yeah, okay,
it's
here.
not
You do that.
necessary.
I'm gonna fix
Yeah.
the
Yep.
the
No,
camera,
you got it.
And then we'll be making a TV show.
I have been on television programs before that have made up random things about me and just put that on the bottom third.
Oh, well, that's
like
exactly
books
what we
that
did.
I have not written.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
What's the best?
things that I have not said.
What's the best
I'm
book
trying to
that you
remember, but I
have
was
not
on
written?
Grit TV once, and they basically just mangled something and then claimed that I was the author of some like sex manual, and it was a little bit like we're talking about like important political issues, but whatever. So at social media is totally acceptable.
Okay, I can change it if you want.
No,
If there's
why?
something different. All right. Well, I don't know. So, sorry, we're getting a weird start because we started a little bit weird. But
My
It's
fault.
been weird.
My fault.
thank you for coming here.
Sure, you're welcome.
Thank you for being a nice friend.
You are welcome.
And can you just tell everybody maybe a little bit about how you moved to Detroit and like why and what happened to you after that? I need to get this fucked up reaction.
So how long do you want me to fill that airtime for?
Well, I
the
was at
bottom line-
MoCAD, so I know a little bit,
Okay,
but
so
nobody.
you
I
don't know what's going
they
on.
maybe don't. know. I'm not camera people.
I mean, I lived in Chicago for a long time, and then I was given a house in Detroit, and I thought I could stay in Chicago.
You thought this is suspicious.
What are they trying to get me to do? What's weird about that is that it's the second house that I was offered that year. So I was offered a number of houses in 2016.
And you turned down the Comics Party house.
You guys did not yet offer me a house, but we can leave that for later.
Was there such a thing?
No.
What was it? Oh, okay.
Well, now I'm expecting a house.
Maybe later. That's the bonus round. If you answer all the questions correctly, the meter fills
Okay.
up, and then you get a
Cool.
house.
Awesome.
All right.
That's. I feel like that's how it works now. So I was offered this house, and this one I accepted. The other one I did not accept, and I moved into it. Did you want a longer version?
Somebody's only given me a house once. How do you get a house for free? 'Cause
So it's this organization called Write a House
okay.
that gives houses to writers, and they wanted me to have one of the writing houses, and I took it.
They said, "You a writer? This is a writing
Yeah,
house.
so that's maybe
you give, we give.
Yeah, and
You
they were like,
take it.
so
Go in it."
send in your writing things, samples. I guess they're called technical lingo samples. If you guys want to.
Does that
write
mean you get a
down.
little thing and you like core out a little piece of like a story and they just get to read like
Yeah,
a,
you send them the whole
a
story.
circular like cylinder from one of your books?
I wish. No. The whole story, front to back. It has to be in like a PDF format or whatever. And I was like, oh, yeah. Well, it's a free house, so who knows how this works, right? So I'll send them comics. And I very rarely do I, when you're asked for a writing sample, you send writing, especially if you are like taken seriously as a writer, which I don't know where you guys' careers are at, but there are people who believe that I am a writer.
You're just being nice.
Yeah. And so I was like, I'll just, whatever. And then I was like, well, no, I'll just send comics. And so I sent in a comics journalism project that I'd been working on for a year and a half at that point, maybe. Threadbare, which is the Truth Out comics journalism project that I've been doing for a long time, since 2011. And I sent them samples of this really crazy story that connects the garment trade to the international human trafficking industry to the international sex trade to the domestic U.S.-based sex trade and sex workers' rights. I was just like, there's no way I'm getting a house out of this. But they, I don't know, didn't read it or something, and they were like, there's words that's cool, and then they gave me a house.
It sounds like words is cool.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Go ahead, Mike.
That's fantastic. Is it cool, or did you take a big like social and cultural hit to move away from Chicago to here?
Well, yes. Yeah. I can't like deny that like I miss my people in Chicago very much. I miss my the cultural life there is just unbeatable. It's cool owning a house, and it's cool getting to do what I get to do in it, gardening, goofing off. I mean, like, it changes the level at which you can work, right? So my whole life I've been like zinester, punk comics girl who's like, yeah, I'll do that job. Like, got to make sure it pays now. And then now I can be like, yeah, I'll do that. Like, that's just sounds like fun. Like, let's do that.
That's cool.
Yeah. So it changes the way that I can navigate the world. But it is complicated for sure. And Detroit is a tricky place to live. Definitely. Yeah.
Was it hard to like accept a nice thing like that? Like,
well,
to be
too.
like, I run around, I go on the bus, and I go all over the place, and I'm a zine person. Get away from me! Like,
exactly.
is that
I'm
hard
like,
to like
I'm a bus
dial
person.
that down? Like, I'm like,
Yeah.
Did it feel weird?
Yeah, for sure. And being like, any recognition, like, and I, have had a certain degree of recognition in my career, and I'm always like, can I swear on this show?
Yeah.
Okay. So I was like, when they gave me my first Fulbright, which was followed by my second Fulbright.
Well, thanks for watching.
Don't go away yet. But it was like fucking A, man. Like, I just got diplomatic immunity for making comics, and like, this is bullshit, and what's going on in the world. And then you get a house, and you have to be like, oh no, apparently, like, I feel more legitimate now because there are certain days when I have to take out the garbage.
Yeah. It's like your garbage.
Yeah.
You accumulated it, and you take it out. You're
Yeah.
responsible for that garbage.
Yeah, and I've
You're
paid
not just
the
traveling
city a
at
certain
like
degree.
light speed all the time,
Yeah.
just like garbage.
Well, and it's true that I traveled 200 days out of the year before I moved here. So big lifestyle change, but also like not having to worry about how my cats were going to get fed, and like permanent book storage is just fundamental shift to how like I live my life.
Where
Yeah,
are
so
all
it's
your
super
Where are
nice.
all your books?
Well, now I have a bookshelf.
One huge one?
There is currently one huge one, and I need to get a second huge one. But that, they give you a house, they don't give you like the money to furnish the house. So we're just waiting to see. Yeah, when I can accumulate the money to buy the bookshelf.
You're
We'll
probably
make it look like I'm a legitimate house owning person.
You're
but-
probably the person who like has the most knowledge about comics and things like that we've maybe ever had. I don't know, but we're just continuing our tradition of just asking you about how much stuff do you have.
Well, we should have done this at my house. I was gonna film
We
the
coulda looked at
volume
your
of
stuff.
garbage.
Do you have
Yeah.
any pictures?
No.
No, that's
I don't.
fine. This is not
Literally.
a visual medium anyway.
Yeah, I think it might be.
So what do you?
Look at that.
I don't see anything. It's just a wall.
I
Do you-
guess
do you-
lighting is what we call that.
No, it's not called that. So I don't know. Like, I feel like if you're traveling 200 days out of the year and all of a sudden someone gives you a house, eventually it's gonna feel like they shackled you to like a ball.
house.
And then like, how high is your level of like, I gotta get out of here?
like right now, or
Well,
on a regular
don't answer
basis?
that. I don't want to know about right now. Just in general. Just in general.
How do I want to, like?
Or are you still traveling a bit and kind of
Well,
satiating
I'm about
that?
to sort of get back into the like maybe I travel a lot thing. Maybe
Cool.
I mean I don't know. I haven't decided how to. I haven't decided what I'm going to be when I grow up yet. But so what I can do in this house is like get a bunch of really crazy stuff done, and nobody bothers me except for my neighbors who are awesome, who I adore, but there's not a new cartoonist coming into town every week that's like, I have to sleep in your couch and make you eat a lot of pizza and drink a lot of beer or whatever. So that's good in terms of like meeting deadlines, being a job having person in the world, but there's also that like impetus part that gets lost. So I do a lot of times end up at the end of the day kind of being like, why am I doing this? Like, because there's just not a ton of people around who are like, hey, how's that thing going? Like, I read books and I have something to say about book reading culture, and you are writing one right now. So let's have a conversation about the thing that you spent all day doing. That being said, that when that stuff does happen, like when I get to, like Phoebe Gleckner lives in Ann Arbor, and so when I get to spend time with her, or when people come there, when, we get to hang out, like, it just becomes this much more exciting thing of like, oh yeah, we are doing something interesting here. And like, that's the reason that you spend all this time in a dark room with your cats writing various words for penis on a page over and over and over. That's my current book.
That's your method.
That's my creative process. I've just tapped it.
I told you we wouldn't ask.
Yeah, I appreciate
I just
that.
got you to say it out loud anyway by
felt
accident.
like sharing it. Yeah. It's all metaphors for ween.
Well, good. Oh my God. So, I'm curious. Like, I know you have so many different, probably cool stories to tell about traveling everywhere.
No, they're
but
not cool.
I'm curious about like.
They're not even that different. They're all the
Did you-
same. I went somewhere.
It's always
different.
the same.
Every time it's different, and you're like, that's not that interesting anymore. So we've done that.
Are you voyaging into sameness now? Like intense sameness?
Intense sameness, yeah. That's my
good.
thing. Yeah.
That's good. I was just curious, like, I didn't know until recently that you were like one of like the big editor of Best American Comics.
Yes.
And I was just curious, like,
Where the fuck do I get off?
no, I think you get off. It's fine. It's good. I like it. I like it a lot. I'm just curious, like, how did you start that? Like, how did you get that idea? Where do your ideas come from? And then, how do you do your ideas?
So I pay a guy in Anchorage, Alaska, to send me ideas. Like,
Yeah?
they're $5.
He's got all the ideas.
Yeah.
I've
He's
I've
good.
been there, and I actually can confirm that there are no ideas there.
Well, he lives outside of town, so you might not have met him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But that particular project arose out of a friend of mine who had another friend, whatever, it doesn't, you guys don't care. This woman, Meg Lemke, called me.
Wait,
She was
whose friend
awesome.
was she?
No, it's socially, it works out like this. But there's this friend of mine who now lives in Dearborn, which is weird because Michigan is small. And I just had lunch with him yesterday. And actually, it was a very delicious lunch.
Yeah. Well, in
And-
Dearborn, you can't have a bad lunch
It's
usually.
kind of true. So a friend of his called me one day and was more or less like, so, you know that Best American Short Stories series? Yeah. You know, Best American Science Writing? Yeah. Well, we're thinking about starting a Best American Comics. And I'm basically like pulled into the idea of it. And I was running Punk Planet at the time and doing a bunch of other journalism stuff and like doing my weird conceptual art projects. And had sort of left comics like 2 years beforehand. I was just done. Like, very done. Which I've done about 6 times. And I'm always completely done with the whole thing.
I feel
Never going back. And then someone's like, but this funny thing that you could do. You can see all your friends again.
And you love wackiness.
No, come do this thing for not enough money to actually support you while you're doing it. So she was like telling me about this idea that she had to basically start, the first big annual anthology of the best comics that had been produced in America in the last year. That's a really interesting idea. I'm like Punk Planet girl. I'm curious about this part of it. And I'm concerned about this. And like what you really need to do is think about who will edit such a thing, because you're going to get a lot of mainstream things unless you get the right editor. And she's like waiting for me to talk myself out. And at the end of me being like, so anyway, that person really basically needs to be like this. And she was like, yeah, we have someone in mind. Not just calling you to chat. So she asked me to take this project on and design it. Then I got to design the Best American Comics. And
were you like the judge, jury, and executioner for this? Were you like the Best American Comics Judge Dredd?
Yeah, Judge Dredd, exactly. And the fun part about it was that in laying out the scope of a project like that, like you determine how comics will be appreciated for the future, right? And the scope can change a little bit. The editors that have worked on it since, Matt Madden and Jessica Abel, and now completely
all the other good ones.
Name. Yes, all the other good ones. And the first one, regardless, will set a standard that they have to navigate, right? So even if the rules change, you've established the groundwork. And the groundwork that I established was ridiculous and hateful, which is why I left the series after 2 years, which was that I would read every single comic sent to me. Everything. I would make a genuine attempt to read everything produced by publishers, by mainstream publishers, by independent publishers, and by individuals in North America, published in English because I'm not quite as stupid as I look, for the entire calendar year, which was like, the volume at the end of fanzines was exactly as high, of like self-produced comics, was exactly as high as the like bullshit Marvel stuff that I was getting on a regular basis. And I read it all.
That sounds very exhausting.
It was very
Wait, so
exhausting.
you were reading like a bunch of Wolverines and stuff?
The whole shebang.
Just in case that was the Best American comic?
Well, I know it sounds ridiculous, but like there is occasionally really good stuff that comes out of there.
I know, it just seems like the
I know.
return is like the...
Totally.
Sorry, I don't mean to pick on Wolverine. He's nice.
But then what happens is that the guest editor that you bring on has a certain taste and aesthetic and set of friends.
That is wrong, right?
That is incorrect. I would say it's egregious and needs to be dealt with. But you still have to like navigate this thing, right?
Yeah.
Because they want often, not whatever, there's great people too, but sometimes they want their 5 best friends. And you're like, they didn't actually produce anything in the last year or 5 years, but
oops.
How are we going to, I can't even pretend that's okay. So whatever. But because I am a little bit smarter than I look, the first editor was Harvey Picard. And Harvey has just an open, friendly approach to comics making. unbelievable aesthetic range, and just 100% was like, these 10 comics are the most interesting to me, and also I chose them along a diverse array of gender and race and content, and I was just like,
You just did all that stuff without even being
Without
like
even-
asked to do that.
right,
Like
exactly.
that's great.
Just
That's
wanted
great.
super diversity,
Yeah.
and then it ended up being like one of the best anthologies that I feel like I mean, definitely the best anthology I've ever put together. But there's like a coherence to that first book that just was nice.
I think so too.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's cool. So again, I don't want to just like make you do your mocap thing over again, but I do.
You couldn't. I didn't bring any slides.
Sweet. We never show any pictures anyway. Could you talk a little bit about your project that you're doing with like the water shutoffs
Yeah.
and the person you're collaborating with
Yes.
for the illustrations
I
on
should
that?
try to bring her pictures of her cats up. Let me see if I can do that. So I do this thing. Oh, damn it. She didn't text them to me. She emailed them to me, so they're not on my phone. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's okay.
She has very cute tabbies named Bruce and Oscar. This is important. It'll become important again later. Melissa Mendes and I are doing this project for Truth Out that's like the current version of the comics journalism investigative series that I've been doing at Truth Out since 2011. In this particular series, because I was given a house apparently for doing comics journalism, and the house was in Detroit, like at some point I was on TV and someone's like, well, this is a big opportunity, like hooray, well, like what are you going to do with this? And I kind of said without thinking, like, well, obviously I'm going to do a comics journalism investigation based in Detroit. And we're going to look at, first three things that come to my mind, like housing and...
Were you literally looking at
water.
these things? Like a guy rides by on a bicycle and bicycles.
Yeah, like literally there is an empty lot across the street from my house, and the interviewer was saying this, and I was like, and land. I mean, it was so like... But I'm very comfortable saying things as if I have put deep thought into them, even though there's no coherence to them at all.
That's good.
Yeah. But then I had to do it because
it was on TV
it was
and
on
it had to become true.
And there were people that were like, that's a great idea. And you're like,
damn you fact checkers.
shouldn't have said that. Why did I do that? So
it destroyed this offhand comment.
Destroyed my life.
Well, I was going to say turned into something really fun and exciting for you to do.
Well, it is actually like fantastic. And it was like this great way of being like, I mean, you move to a new place and you're like, I would like all of the dirt, but I would like it to be palatable, and I would like to meet the people who can make it funny. And so then it's like, okay, well, here's the worst thing that happened, but here's a way to tell this story that doesn't actually make people want to commit suicide. And so let's talk to them and then like find out that they're amazingly cool people and figure out a way that both makes their life better and makes this story real, and then tell that story, and then it can just be Melissa and I like joking about cats and murderers, which are like the two main joke themes that we like to, which is the tabby thing, because tabbies are very good at when you die alone in an apartment and a tabby is in there, the tabby will eat you first, and like before all of the other cats. And so if you want to get before a black cat or a white cat, no. God, no. Cats eat people when they die.
I wasn't doing a dad joke. I was seriously asking.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Cats eat people when they die.
Yeah.
But tabbies go for it.
Like they've just been waiting.
They have been waiting. Yeah.
They don't even wait to be sure.
They don't even
take your
pulse. Long nap.
Like remember
this cat doesn't even take your pulse.
Like Y2K. On Y2K my tabby was like licking me. So get a tabby.
Is your cat a prepper?
It's a little bit of a prepper. Yeah. Kind of a, yeah.
I won't
he's
ask
like
you
that.
any more questions like that. I forgot what we were talking about.
Melissa.
Yeah, Melissa.
And the series. So the series, yeah, I just wrote the last script for it.
Sweet.
Yeah. So then after the Truth Out series is completed, which is these 12 strips that look at water, land, and housing rights in southeastern Michigan, mostly Detroit. After this last one publishes, which will be in a couple weeks, we get to work on the book.
Cool.
Yeah, and she'll come here for a couple weeks, and then she'll finally get to meet everybody. And they'll be like, wow, I thought Anne drew all those, because Anne lies about it.
I thought you drew all those, and you even said you didn't.
I know. Because feels good to take credit for other people's work.
I wish I had the camera on you when you said that. That would have been the clip. The teaser.
I would never do that. I would only do that rarely.
And you didn't. No, you're good. You did a good job.
I just, it is funny to me what people, when they look at that strip, what people think is important. Because they see images. So the drawing is very important. And they see me because Melissa doesn't like to go do public lectures. So obviously I did the drawings because these things are public. The writing doesn't matter because it's just there. It's just narrating the pictures. And then Melissa doesn't exist because she's not actually talking. So there's always this thing of like, okay, actually comics are really complicated. And there's writing and there's drawing and they take like a month minimum. And we're like pushing it the whole time.
It takes a month to do what volume of comics?
Well, that strip, I mean, those pages, if we're talking about like standard text pages, they're probably 3 or 4 pages long, and that's
like 800 pages of comics?
Probably 3 or 4 pages of comics.
Oh. I thought you meant like full...
Per month.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. I might have just confused you more, but it's okay.
Yeah. I'm going to pretend I know what you're talking about.
So the strip, we do it monthly. And like idea to interviews to reporting to all the original photography that goes into it, which is like a hidden volume of work that's like probably takes up more time than almost anything else.
And is that as reference for the drawings? And
yes, literally
the
just
people and the
Melissa.
places and stuff.
Yep.
It looked like from what I saw, from what you showed, it looked like that there was pretty special attention paid to like making sure the faces were right, and because you're doing journalism instead of just sloppy old regular comics.
That's right. Journalism versus sloppy is the distinction. But Melissa's also just good at that, and she has like an adherence to truth that works well with the form of comics journalism that we're doing. So I think that's more about like how we work together and how she draws.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. When you were talking, I'm sorry, Mike, I'm talking about something that you weren't at, but this was at
It was amazing.
MoCA.
You should have been there.
I can't believe. Oh,
I'm
Just
enjoying
kidding.
myself. I should be at home watching on my internet computer. I feel like I'm just.
Do you have an internet computer?
Yeah.
How much did it cost?
I don't
You
know.
don't have to answer that.
many.
That's embarrassing.
It cost many.
Dollars.
Well, you were talking about. Let me think what I'm trying to say. Like going back and forth and saying like, maybe you need to change this thing, or like you sending a draft of a drawing and then going back and saying I want this thing to be more prominent in the drawing, or like maybe this thing looked a little bit different than that, but you can't see it in the picture or something.
Yeah.
how do you? I was just thinking of like me if I was in that situation. I'd be like, dry yourself. I don't want to do this anymore. Like, is it just that she's like a super chill, like cool person, and is like good with that kind of stuff?
I get what the question is.
I don't know. Not that
How
you're doing it
does
in like
your
a mean
partner
way.
Put up with your bullshit.
No.
I think that's legitimate, and I will answer that.
Fine.
Which is that I don't know, and I'm very lucky that she does. But it is the thing about comics journalism that is why most people don't do it, is you have to be exacting about these certain things. The other thing that comes up a lot is that, like, with comics journalism, there are deadlines, there are spelling standards, there's grammar, and all these things that, like, you know, no offense, most comics creators do not give a shit about. And so to be like, not only is there an editorial process, but there's an adherence to fact that we need to make sure is being dealt with at all times, is not in the natural frame of reference for comics people. So it is partially because Melissa just happens to be really interested in journalism, but also the way that she even tells her, like, memoir stories, or even some of her fiction stories, is about making sure that those, like, little nuggets of detail that are particularly truth-telling are self-evident, and that those can sort of form the base of the story if I'm not just making stuff up, which I might be.
It sounded real. Thank you.
All I asked.
No, that's like, I don't know, when that was the part of it that I was kind of the most interested in. It's like where you're there's a super formal set of journalistic standards for, like, even video. And there's obviously, like, long-standing standards for, you know, print journalism where it's just text and stuff. But it's interesting to have I don't know how I'm trying to say this. Like, it's interesting to try to come up with a set of standards for a medium where you're literally making something up.
Yeah.
Like, you're making the drawing that didn't exist before.
Yeah.
Like,
and we weren't there.
Yeah.
And it seems really crazy when you come at it from that standpoint, for sure, because I mean, whatever. Melissa and I are full-grown, functioning adult human women, but, like, I feel like, you know, I'm just this kid who, like, runs around and, like, is interested in stuff and, like, poking at stuff and, like, asking questions, you know.
Yeah.
And like, I write down the funniest answer because it's more interesting than the full truthful answer, and then like.
Do you have to try to not do that?
Well, I have to do a lot of research again later. That's like,
yeah.
I better back that up. And
I hope the funny answer is the right one.
And let's truthful. So it feels really loose and off the cuff, except for that process in the end does produce something that is, like, fact checkable and verifiable, and that everyone involved sort of agrees, you know, happened in consensus reality, and that properly represents a very complicated series of events, often that have been distilled to the, like, 6 or 7 frames, you know? And then, I shouldn't have said frames. I feel like a total traitor for saying, like, frames. Panels. I was talking about animation earlier.
Bad?
Well, it's an animation term.
Oh, okay.
So I'm yeah. I'll get help for that later. I'm sure that I will. Nonetheless, do
you know some, like, really mean animators? Like,
those comics people.
Oh, okay.
Comics
I thought the
people are the mean
animators
ones.
were oh, yeah.
The animators are like, don't use our language.
You look, like, really scared when you used, like, the animation term.
No, it's just that you don't want to, like, there is a coherent language for comics, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know what it is. And I'm currently writing a book that explains why that's stupid. But I don't want to be too lax about pretending it doesn't exist until we've all agreed that it doesn't exist. So I'm just jumping ahead of myself.
That's the most confusing thing I've ever heard in my life.
No, it wasn't. I apologize for saying the word frames. I should have said panels. If you can cut that out.
No.
Oh,
Okay.
now
No
though
cutting.
it's going to be a forever joke where it's just the rectangles where the stuff happens in them. That's where I draw the
Those-
pictures at.
Those is the frames.
I'm over.
Those are the
I'm over. I'm buried. That was your Leslie Stahl moment.
Your last interview.
That's the
On
trouble,
Facebook
though.
TV.
You could accidentally plant the seed, and we can run with it
Yeah.
forever. 'Cause
Oh.
I feel like
I just gave you the opportunity. Okay, well, make the most of it. Enjoy it.
They were really mean and they just made fun of me the whole time. Oh my god.
Are you doing okay?
I'm so hot. It's so hot in here.
It's hot in here.
It's so hot.
Yeah.
good
Are
thing.
you
is
hot
that-
in here?
Yeah, it's 1,000 degrees. These lamps were burning
degrees.
for
They're
2 hours.
lamps.
Well, you guys were not waiting for me for 2 hours.
No.
We were hanging out.
Yeah.
Do you guys both live in Detroit?
No.
Do you live in Detroit?
I live in Ferndale now.
Fuck you.
We get
Come on.
nothing.
You get nothing.
Nothing at
I'll
all.
show you my cool thing that I
Show-
brought
Show
to
it
give
to us.
to
yeah.
people who
Show
do
it
live
for
in
real
Detroit,
people.
which is buttons that say I read and I live in Detroit. But you can't wear them. You
I
can
don't know. I won't
have
wear
them.
Because
My
I
new
don't.
button that says "fuck reading."
Doesn't say that.
It's a pretty button. You may.
It is a pretty button.
Which fabric is this one from?
I don't know which one that is, but it has a good fold in it.
Let's just
This
keep
is-
doing
we'll
stuff
just
that
talk
nobody
about
can
stuff that
see.
no one can see.
Let's just keep that going. Oh, this is dusty. Oh my goodness.
Oh goodness.
Is this related to something? Don't worry, I won't wear it. Is this related
Don't even.
to...
You can touch it
to
for like 10
something?
seconds and then you have to put
No
it
one
down
can
again.
see.
No.
Yeah.
Is this just like a personal vendetta?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. This is my project to renew a desire for literacy in the Detroit city area.
That's cool.
This is by buttons. People just get sucked up into a buttons message and they just never stop. That's what I have
You don't
learned.
want them to stop.
No,
No.
definitely not.
So I'm just curious. How do we become you? How do we go and travel around and get cool, like, go somewhere, get like a cool teaching job, but not one that takes up all your time, and then get people to give you a house and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, how do you do that? Because that sounds enjoyable.
Okay. So when you're 11,
Yeah?
you have to start making stupid books
Done.
and don't stop. And that's it. That's what I got. That's like the
good.
secret.
That's good.
Yeah. I think it's different from Oprah's Secret. I think Oprah's Secret is about like believing in yourself or
Thinking
something.
about books
Thinking
a
about
lot.
yeah, like
Having
imagining
a lot of books.
Yeah. That's not the same secret. No, my secret is you do one stupid thing and then you don't stop doing it. And then for some reason, after you do that for long enough, people are like, "Oh, that's a really amazing thing." And you're like, "Okay, I can play that game."
We're playing the game.
Are we?
Yeah.
What?
Are we?
No, fuck no. That's why it's so intimidating when we meet a real professional who's actually good at a thing.
I know.
We've given up 1,000 times. It's taken us.
man.
How many years has it taken us to write a book that we decided was going to be 50 pages, 50 sentences? taken us 5 years.
Was it 5 years?
Yes, dude, yes.
Yeah. Well, we keep doing stuff that makes us hate comics.
Yeah.
Like,
Throwing a comics show.
yeah.
And ever reading most comics.
That's true, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of downsides to comics, and most of them are other people's comics.
I don't want to say that to them. And I want to encourage them to always make things.
Well, that's the thing. It's worth supporting them always, because they'll eventually be good too. But it's just a hard industry to be in all the time.
Yeah.
Totally for real, for sure.
Yeah.
And there's no like moment when you hit a point where you're like, oh, it's all different now, because
I'm here.
yeah,
I've
when you
made
get
it.
there, it's like now you're drawing and writing every day again still. And that's your reward.
Is it
doing
like
more of what you
higher
do.
pressure or lower pressure than you like? I mean, like I would imagine, like okay, you're making comics, you're not pulling in any money doing comics,
Yeah.
and that's stressful because you have to worry about your rent and like eating and doing
Yeah.
like normal human being stuff. And then
Yeah.
like when people do want to pay you to do things, it seems like that is just another extra different kind of pressure. Like you remove one and you add another one where it's like you're expected to
Yeah.
continue producing amazing things all the time, you know?
Yeah. And I think like what's weird about me, which is also the reason that I can't like actually provide helpful advice for anyone, because what I do is really weird, like both in comics and in the other real world, that people, when they ask me to do something new, there's often a set of expectations that goes with what that will be and how that will like play out, and like what approach I will take to it, right? But in what I feel like I've done with my career is I've established myself as someone who can sort of take a set of ideas and then just do something interesting with it that is the right thing to do, right? And often you get to that phase where you're like, okay, but here's the thing that I am going to do with the opportunity you have presented me, and they're like, that is not at all what we wanted. Like, we wanted the exact same thing that you did last time. And you're like, well, you know, I did that already, and
Yeah.
I want to do this other thing now.
Yeah.
So,
That's positive though, to do that. I mean, that to not feel like you're obligated to be that same exact person you
For
were when you did
sure.
a certain project.
yeah,
That's-
and there's
that's
also
good.
this really great thing about that conversation going from like, oh, there is absolutely no way that we will allow that thing to happen, to being like, oh, wait, actually, maybe I do see some possibility in this, and maybe this is something that can change the way that people see this media or this issue or this idea or whatever, this object that is the thing that I'm making the thing about.
Yeah. I don't know, you said something a little bit ago about like being in different stages of your career or whatever. Maybe I said, I don't know. But have you ever had anybody who you like either an artist or a writer or anything who you kind of took on as like a pupil or like I know you're a teacher, like you teach
Yeah.
you know, CCS, and I'm sure you taught a million other places too, but has there ever been anyone, like, it could be from that environment but kind of in addition, like outside
Yeah.
of that, who you've kind of like been like, this person that has some cool shit and I want to like help them make it?
Yeah, for sure. And like the thing about being a teacher, I mean, this happens less at CCS than it did at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, but like, is that it just puts you in contact with a bunch of people who have a bunch of amazing ideas, and then you can kind of be like, oh, look, here's the format through which we should do that, right? And so,
Yeah.
I mean, one of the people that I met through the School of the Art Institute of Chicago that then ended up working with me on sort of an independent study is Emil Ferris, who just did My Favorite Thing is Monsters, which started as an independent study project with me. And that was such a fun project because she had no clue when she started it, like how crazy what she was doing was.
Mm-hmm.
And so every week it was like, okay, I just need to see more pages. And there was always this tension where she was like, but you're not, I don't feel like you're really pressuring me enough or like giving me enough feedback. And it was like, well, that, you don't have to give feedback when it's just a question of getting the fully formed awesome thing out on the page, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then also, the big project that I was working on between 2010 and 2015, mostly, 2016, was the Lady Drawers Comix Collective in Chicago, which was basically like my collaborative excuse for anybody who was doing anything interesting related to gender and globalism and maybe like something related to comics, something related to art, maybe just illustration, maybe writing, maybe data collection, and just like finding a way to fit them into this really massive, complicated project that was more or less this ongoing research facility that looked at how gender and media operated in a global sense and then made mostly comics, but sometimes like other kinds of art out of that as a way of like highlighting these tendencies. And so that was like, there were just, in the end, like 500 people involved in that were just so incredibly brilliant and amazing, and they're all doing like completely wacky, brilliant things around the world right now. Which is also just like a part of how I operate and a part of how, like what I'm interested in the Chicago cultural tradition is that this was always a way that Chicago cultural producers dealt with stuff, which is that you engaged with it as a creator, as like a solo creator, but then also as a community member who then found ways to enfold local concerns into how you were making the thing, which then became like a collaborative project. It's what people now call social practices, which is sort of a bastardization, I think, of how it started out. But it's about having an ethic that ties you to people in a direct way and engages you both in the process of making a culture that betters a situation for like more than just you, right? For all the people you can imagine. That is my very long answer to that.
That's cool as shit. I have no jokes about that at all. That was super cool.
We accomplished amazing things for sure. Like, it is just plain old amazing what can happen if you get like 3 people in a room together who are just like, let's do something. Let's make it work.
Yeah.
Let's change everything about how the garment industry functions. Let's do that. Yeah. Let's take a couple weeks and just see how we can do that. One thing that the Lady Drawers did together, and this started again in the classroom, is that we were like, it feels like there's a pay disparity in comics and between women and men. Like, how could we figure that out? And we spent a semester figuring out how we could figure that out, and then we did it. And then we proved men in comics tend to earn, for every dollar a man earns in comics, a woman earns 27 cents.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
You would think it was just like men earning like 5 cents. I'm earning 4 cents.
Well, I mean,
because it's
yeah.
you, as you said earlier, still famous cartoonists sleeping on your couch.
Yeah. Yeah. So, for every dollar a man earns in comics, and he rarely earns more than 10,000. Yeah, it's very complicated. But a trans and non-binary person earns 3.5 cents. And that's where you're like, oh man, there's something happening there, right?
Yeah.
And then so we spent the next year figuring out how that works and why.
Sounds very interesting.
It's math, basically. It's very complicated.
Never mind
math.
then. Oh,
Yeah, no, it's boring. It's the honest
that's
truth.
super cool. So I don't know. Do you have any questions, Mike?
I'm always enthralled and in awe when we get to hang out with you. It's
Oh, that's so sweet.
It's always a deep pleasure and very impressive. Or you're very impressive. I'm very impressed at all
Are
times.
you lying to me right now?
No.
No, for me too. I'm just trying to keep talking so I don't act.
Oh.
No, I don't.
Do you want to hear the story of this T-shirt?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is a T-shirt with a dog who has an erection on it. And this is a shirt that I wore to a very important radio interview in the year of 2000 that turned out not to be a radio interview, but a interview on the public broadcasting station that is still aired to this day.
Really?
Yeah.
Which
And-
public broadcasting station?
In Seattle, Washington.
Oh.
Yeah. And I was running late, and so I didn't change out of this T-shirt into something that would have been appropriate. Had I known it was a television interview, which I did not, and I was running late because I was still drunk. And maybe at someone else's house who was not age appropriate for me, because I had just broken up with my partner of a year under crazy circumstances. So the bottom line is that there is video of me like waxing totally ineloquently about like zines and comics floating around Seattle Public Broadcasting. I'm wearing this T-shirt and I'm still drunk and it's 9 o'clock in the morning and I have like lipstick smeared all over and I look like hell. I just feel I have to like
Well, you're
pay
back
homage
in the public
to
access
that.
station.
I know.
You got
it's-
that part.
Exactly.
right?
I've totally atoned for my previous missteps.
Are you drunk?
I would not say drunk. I think that's a little
harsh,
Yeah.
rude word to use.
I am no longer really a drinking person. I can have a
That's
glass of
cool.
wine a week. Yeah.
That's cool.
That's not, I mean, whatever. That's whatever.
I can't even do that. Good for you.
That is cool.
That's cool.
Yeah. I mean, livers are awesome. And you should do what you can to make sure that they remain awesome for a long period of time. That's my current theory
That's true.
about livers.
I didn't know that until very recently.
How awesome livers are?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you learn really quick when you need to.
All right. Well, we're almost done. I think we're almost out of time. I just wanted to ask if there's any, like, if you were going to bring one of your Chicago friends to Detroit, where would you take them, or what would you show them?
Like in terms of like,
Anything.
I mean,
like, is there a cool
mostly-
thing you've discovered, or?
well, there's sort of a drive that I take people on that's like up north of my house, which is, empty, and then occasional like single houses on the block that are
Mm-hmm.
decrepit and gorgeous, and that I after our last Comix talk to some beekeepers, now I think of as bee houses because we want to like jam them full of bees.
Don't you hate it when beekeepers move in next to you?
Well, they wouldn't be next to me. They'd be the only house on the block, like 2 blocks away.
Oh, good 2 blocks away.
And they could bring me honey.
Oh, yeah.
That's what my theory is.
They're your bees.
I feel like they would be. They're nearby. They're like my bee neighbors. But that's, I mean, whatever. This is all my bee-related fantasy. So I drive people up this thing, and then Maddie Maroon has recently purchased a plot of land north of my house, which is mysterious.
Good things are coming.
So definitely it's about to get awesome. And that's like you can't really see anything, but whatever. I make people look at boring things all the time.
Yeah.
And then like, down, whatever, and then down south and through various neighborhoods. And we never look at the really beautiful stuff, even though I probably should add that to my route. But the stuff that's like shifting drastically is really fun. And then there's always a restaurant at the end.
That's good. It's a good way to end.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to end now, and hopefully there'll be a restaurant in our future. Thank you, everybody up in the sky, for watching today, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, Ann.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Cell phone.